Bellator 298 this Saturday night from South Dakota, specifically Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In the main event, we have got a fight in the welterweight division between Logan Storley and Brennan Ward. And my goodness, there are 18 fights in this card. Normally the max for most promotions is 15. You often see maybe a Fury FC dabble into the the 18 fight or more than 15 fight cards. FAC used to do it a little bit, but man, it is rare to see a promotion on the scale of Bellator go more than 15 fights. I remember they did 18, I think, once in Ireland, I think they did. But man, it's a lot. It's a lot. And we're going to get through some of these undercard fights pretty quickly just because there's 18 fights in this card, and I don't want to be here all day because my Bellator videos are normally in the range of 25 minutes, and we're hoping we can keep it to that. So our first fight, or actually before we get in the video, folks, we also posted our UFC Fight Night preview and predictions with Vicente Luque and Rafael Dos Anjos in the main event. Go make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more MMA here on the channel. Next week, we're going to have more UFC and more PFL. Again, we cover all MMA, American MMA really here on the channel. So go make sure you check out the UFC and, of course, PFL coming out this week, or next week. And here you go, on to this 18-fight Bellator card. Our first fight, and starting off the first four, we've got Michael Blockus taking on Eli Mefford. Michael is a wrestler coming out of Minnesota. This will be his professional debut. He's taking on a guy here in Eli Mefford who is 0-4. Mefford has last fought in 2022 in North Iowa fights. He lost by knockout. Before that, he lost a fight by knockout before to Nick Gietta, and then lost a split decision before that to Alexander Schneck, and then a submission to Brennan McKissick. Yeah, it's not good. The guy has not been winning fights. He has not won he's not won a professional fight just yet. I'm taking Michael Blockus to win this fight. I think he gets it done by first round knockout. Our next one, another wrestler making his debut. This time it will be Jordan Oliver, who is 33 years old, training out of Killcliff FC. This will be his first professional fight as well. He's going to be taking on 0-1 Andrew Triolo. Triolo is coming off of his only fight so far in professional MMA in 2022, where he was a plus 775 underdog against a guy who was making his pro debut at the time as well, but he got finished in the first round. He tapped out due to strikes. He's now coming into Bellator. He's fighting Jordan Oliver. Again, you don't need to know much about Jordan Oliver because, again, Bellator likes to set up some of these guys with fights that they can win pretty easily, and this is another one of those fights Jordan Oliver is going to win by first round knockout. Our next fight will be Gerald Hodge taking on Alves here. This is a good fight because for Hodge, he's 10-3. He's fought once in LFA, being his last fight where he won in a main event. He became the interim bantamweight champion over there in LFA with his last victory in March. So coming now into this fight as the interim LFA champion, now he gets signed to Bellator. It's a tougher fight for him because he's getting a guy who's 11-3 in Alves, who we have not seen in Bellator just yet, but he is. I don't think he's the Jungle Fight champion anymore because he actually probably is. I think he's the Jungle Fight champion. He won the Jungle Fight Bantamweight Championship back in December of 2022. He was booked against Brett Johns earlier this year in Bellator. Fight didn't happen. Then he was booked in LFA. Fight didn't happen as well. Alves now against Gerald Hodge. It's a tough fight. This is one of the tougher ones I think to pick, just because again you've got a guy who's coming in Hodge as the LFA champion, and you got Alves who's coming in as the Jungle Fight champion. Jungle Fight being one of the better regionals over there in Brazil. I would say it is the regional promotion in Brazil. I'm going to take Gerald Hodge to win by decision, but I think it's a very close fight. Alves has shown really good striking so far outside Bellator, and for Gerald Hodge, it's been a lot of grappling that's won him fights. It's going to make for an interesting stylistic fight, but I'm going to take the favorite here in Gerald Hodge to win this fight. I'd like him to take it by unanimous decision. Our next fight will come in the bantamweight division. We've got Bryce Meredith, taking on Alberto Rodriguez. Taking Bryce Meredith to win this fight. I'm going to take him by submission in the first round. Meredith is 4-0 professionally. Of course, one of those wins coming in Bellator being his last fight, the submission win over Brandon Carrillo. It's a second round submission victory in his last one before that, winning 3 straight fights in LFA, all by finish. Only two of his fights have gotten out of the first round, but he's got 2 knockout finishes in the first round as well, 2 finishes, one by submission, one by knockout. Again, Meredith has been really good recently, or just in his professional career so far. He takes on a guy in Alberto Rodriguez who is 4-3. Fighting out of Illinois, Rodriguez is coming off a loss in his last fight to an undefeated fighter at the time. Before that, he beat a guy who was 8-1, lost to 2-1 fighter beforehand. I don't know much about Alberto Rodriguez, I'll be honest with you, but he just has not looked very good outside of Bellator. This will be his first Bellator fight. This is the type of fight they want Bryce Meredith to go out there and absolutely destroy him on Tapology. By the way, 3 of these first 4 fights, other than the Hodge Alves fights, have been 99% to 1% on the picks. I think you know where this is going. Bryce Meredith is going to win this fight by first round submission. Those are the first 4. We've got 4 more. On to our next one, Sullivan Cauley taking on his opponent here in Hamza Salim. Taking Sullivan Cauley to win this fight, he's going to get it done by first round knockout. It just makes sense. He's a 98% to a 2% favorite in this fight. Cauley did lose his last fight. It's his first professional loss to Luke Trainer. Before that, 5 straight wins in Bellator. You got over the likes of Ben Parrish. Big Tuna was his big victory. Won 2 fights after that. Then just ran into Luke Trainer and got submitted. He's not going to get finished by Hamza Salim in this fight. Salim's a guy who's 7-6. He's already lost twice in Bellator. Those fights being at Bellator 243 and Bellator 249, respectively, over Grant Neal and Christian Edwards, which, by the way, are 2 tougher entry-level guys they can give someone like Hamza Salim, but since then, he's went on to lose 2 out of his next 4 to Wes Schultz, won a fight against an 18-48 fighter, then lost to a guy 3-1-1, and then beat a 2-1 fighter in his last fight in Cage Warriors Northwest in Oregon, not the Cage Warriors. Sullivan Cauley wins this fight. He gets it done by first round knockout. On to our next one. We have got in the featherweight division, we have got Danya Silva, who is a big underdog in this fight, taking on our opponent here in Shakalova. I don't entirely know how to say her first name. The Ukrainian fighter here in Shakalova should win. She was booked earlier this year in another fight in in 2022, but she has not actually competed in a fight since January of 2022. She is from the Ukraine, but she's a pretty big favorite in this fight for a reason. Her ground game's really good, and it's to the point where, is Danya Silva going to be able to compete with that? I don't know. Because Danya Silva's 10-8. Her last fight being lost to Leah McCourt. She beat Janae Harding before that, which is a solid one, I guess. But again, Bellator has got a lot of fighters at 145 that just aren't very good, have 500 records, but since they only have 15 fighters, they're all considered top 15 fighters for them, right? Because Bellator does have rankings, but their rankings are not very good. So it's just, again, they have some of these fighters who, like a Marina Moraes, or no, she was PFL, I think, but like a Arlene Blanco, like a Janae Harding, like a Danya Silva, they get these fighters, again, who they say are top 15 names, but in reality, they're not very good. Now, Danya Silva's not going to stand a chance in this fight. She's going to get taken down. I think she's, she might get submitted. She might not. I think she's going to get taken down and held down. I think Shakalova wins this fight by decision. I just don't think, again, Danya Silva has a comparable ground game to what Shakalova is going to bring. Give me the favorite to win this fight. She's going to get it done by unanimous decision. Our next fight comes with Jairo Pacheco, and he'll be taking on Vladimir Tokov in this fight. Tokov is 8-2, coming off of winning his last fight in a huge victory over the, at the time, undefeated Canadian at Lance Gibson Jr. Tokov now gets Jairo Pacheco. Pacheco's 7-1, his only loss being his last fight in Bellator to Kilis Moda, and his only fight in Bellator, again, to Kilis Moda. This is a good fight. It is. Tokov, I think, is probably the favorite. I'm going to take him to win by decision. I think he will win because he is 4-2 in Bellator. Again, the last one being a big one. The power jab finish over Lance Gibson Jr. really means something. I think it does. He had a split decision loss to J.J. Wilson and a split decision loss to Chris Gonzalez as well. Those are his only 2 losses in Bellator. The wins, I mean, Ryan Walker and Brandon Hastings aren't the greatest of wins, but the win over Daniel Scatizzi does mean something, I think, against Scatizzi. Has traded wins and losses so far in Bellator, but still, that's a good win over a guy in Scatizzi that Tokov does get, and the biggest one again to date is the Lance Gibson victory. He should be able to beat Jairo Pacheco in this fight, and I think Tokov should be able to, get it any way he wants it. Both these guys have 2 wins by knockout, 2 wins by decision. Pacheco's got 3 by submission. Tokov's got 4 by decision, but again, for Pacheco, this is a guy who, had 1 fight in LFA, got to Bellator. He was booked against Max Roskopf on this card. Roskopf, of course, withdrew. So now you get Tokov and Pacheco. I think Tokov's the more skilled fighter. I think he wins this fight by unanimous decision. Our final fight of the next 4, we have got Justine Kish, who is a huge underdog against her opponent here in Diana Avasaragova. I don't entirely still know how to say her name. I know she's had 4 fights in Bellator. I think that's the closest we're going to get here. Diana, though, takes on Justine Kish. This fight's not competitive. We've seen Diana before against fighters like Alejandra Lara. We've seen her, again, that was probably her toughest ask yet. But I don't think it's a straight up, I don't think it's a layup that Diana wins this fight. Because, Justine Kish, I know she's 1-2 in Bellator, and her 2 losses are both to Deanna Bennett, which does not make sense. But, the win over Lima McFarland still looks good. It does. And now, yes, Justine Kish has not won a fight. She's only won 1 fight in her last 5. That's a little bit concerning, but still, again, the victory over Lima McFarland makes you a little bit interested in this fight. I think Diana still wins the fight. I'm going to go with the Russian to win this fight. I'm going to take her by decision because, again, it's a women's fight. It's likely going to go by decision. However, I wouldn't count Justine Kish out in this fight. I really wouldn't. Because, again, I know she got on Lima McFarland, who at the time I think was very unmotivated in the sport, who didn't really want to be there, but she still went out there and still got the victory. I think Diana goes out there and beats her, but again, it's a fight that I'm not that excited in, but I don't think Diana should be too big of a favorite in. I'm going to take her by decision. And finally, we are out of the first 8. We are now on to the individual fights. Now, we can finally, settle down and focus on these individual fights as a whole. So our first fight, it's still prelims, but still, I don't know if this fight's going to be this low on the card because Tapology's got it pretty low. Interesting. You've got the 14-1 Kasumov taking on Josh Hill. Now, Kasumov's only loss is back in 2019. His only fight in ACA is his only loss to Charles Henrique. And he's taking on Josh Hill, a guy who is coming off a split decision victory over Cass Bell in his last fight. Before that, he lost to Marcus Brennan, beat Jared Scoggins. Before that, had a fight where he lost to Ralphian Stotts. I mean, again, Josh Hill has been around in Bellator. But now, again, he's 36 years old, getting up there in age, taking on a younger fighter, a 29-year-old Russian fighter who is on the way up. And for Kasumov, man, 9 submission victories. He's got 14 professional wins, but 9 of them are by submission. The guy is going to go out there and he is going to try to submit you. And that's why I'm picking him to beat Josh Hill by second-round submission. I know Josh Hill has had a lot of success on the ground before. I know he's a very good grappler as a whole. But again, once you get some of these Russian fighters, man, they're tough to beat. And again, I think age is going to play a part in this fight. Josh Hill is 7 years older, and I think that's not going to benefit him at all in this fight. Again, I know he's coming off a split decision victory, but again, it was against Cass Bell, and Josh Hill is a minus 400 favorite in that fight. Not Josh Bell, that's the baseball player on the Marlins now. Josh Hill has not been that same type of fighter again. It's just, he's getting up there in age. He came to Bellator at, 35 or 34. I'm going to take Kasumov to win this fight. I'm going to take him by second-round submission. On to our next one. We've got Leandro Higo taking on Nikita Mikhailov. We are going to be taking in this fight, we're going to be taking Mikhailov to win this fight by unanimous decision. We'll see. Because, again, you look at a guy in Leandro Higo, and by the way, this fight's still this low. It's pretty low in the undercard. But for Higo, this is a guy we have not seen since the Danny Sabatello fight. And for Sabatello, back-to-back losses after losing to Ralphian Stotts. Actually, no, he did not beat Ralphian Stotts. But he lost to Ralphian Stotts, then he beat Marcus Brennan, then he went on to lose to Mamedov. He got caught in a guillotine choke on that Bellator and Ryzen card. But for Leandro Higo, lost to Danny Sabatello, booked against James Gallagher, booked against Nikita Mikhailov. And now here, of course, is the Mikhailov fight on the second, booking of the fight. For Nikita, the loss to Enrique Barzola isn't great. Of course, that was to get into the Grand Prix. Barzola beats him by unanimous decision. That was a catchweight at 140 fight. But again, you look at Mikhailov's last fight, it's a win over Darren Caldwell, which I know Caldwell has not been that great recently. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. Who knows if he honestly will fight again. He is 35. But Mikhailov goes in there. He beats him by unanimous decision. He beat Blaine Shutt before the loss to Barzola. Beat Brian Moore. I'm confident in Mikhailov to win this fight. I am. I think he does win. Or Mikhailov to win this fight. Again, Higo, I know beat Darren Caldwell. Both these guys beat Darren Caldwell. Beat Ricky Bandejas. I think Mikhailov wins this fight. I'm going to take him by decision. Not that confident, but this is one of the lower undercard fights. We're going to take Nikita to win by decision. Our next fight will come here in the lightweight division. Alfie Davis takes on Alan Cruz. Now, Alfie Davis, coming off a win in his last fight against Thibaut Coty by unanimous decision. He gets a guy now in Alan Cruz who's a former UFC name. He went 0-2 in the UFC, but since that UFC run, Alan Cruz has won 3 fights, the last one being in Bellator. It's the win over Bobby King, where he beats King by unanimous decision. It's a good win over Bobby King because it's a guy who King, has been around in Bellator. He's got a win over Keone Diggs. He had a fight where he lost to Gadzi Rabadanov, but yeah, Bobby King is a well-known Bellator name that Alan Cruz went out there and He beat by unanimous decision. After he got cut by the UFC, and the UFC run for Alon Cruz was a knockout loss to Spike Carlisle in his first fight, then another knockout loss to Uros Medic in his second fight, gets cut by the UFC, goes into Fury FC, wins a fight, and then beats Charles Cheeks by TKO in the second round. Charles Cheeks is a guy who just has been around in Fury FC. He's fought a lot over there. But yeah, he goes in there, beats Charles Cheeks by knockout in the second round, and then gets Bobby King, loses by unanimous decision. However, he's a pretty sizable underdog to Alfie Davis, because Alfie Davis' only loss is to Alexander Chablis. Now, Alexander Chablis is a monster. I think Chablis is likely to be in the championship fight in the Bellator Grand Prix if it happens, again, because who knows if Bellator is going to still be around with the whole PFL, buyout potentially happening, right? But if it does, Chablis versus Usman Nurmagomedov looks like the championship fight, assuming Nurmagomedov can get past Brent Primus, and I think Chablis will really go through Batricky Pitbull. That's Alfie Davis' only loss in Bellator. It's to Alexander Chablis. Now he's got the draw to Tim Wilde, where it's a majority draw, but still, Davis is good. I think he goes out there. I think he goes out there to outstrike Alfie Davis. Alfie Davis is going to go out there, outstrike Alon Cruz. Davis is going to win. I'm going to take him to win by unanimous decision. Our next fight at bantamweight, we talked about Enrique Barzola a little bit earlier. Now he gets Jalen Bates. Bates is undefeated at 7-0. It's a fight that a lot of people are split on. We are going Jalen Bates by unanimous decision. He is 7-0, and he's 7-0 in Bellator. His last fight being a split decision victory over Jornel Lugo, a huge victory where he was an underdog in. It was a post-limb, but you know what Jalen Bates brings to the table. I'm stuttering. But you know what Jalen Bates is going to bring to the table. He is a tremendous grappler, and Barzola is going to test you down there as well. Don't get you wrong. Like, Barzola is going to test you there too. He has a win over Eric Perez in his last fight by unanimous decision, but dropped back-to-back fights to Magomedov and the new Ryzen champion in Juan Archuleta, who's the Ryzen bantamweight champion, which is crazy. I guess that's where the future does hold for Juan Archuleta. But again, you look at Barzola and Jalen Bates here. Barzola wins over Eric Perez. Mikhailov, who we just talked about earlier, he's got the win over Darren Caldwell in his Bellator debut, but that was really the start of Caldwell's downfall in Bellator. Barzola, of course, a former UFC name who was doing pretty well in the UFC. He did go 6-3-1 over there, but just had a spell of, I guess some bad luck. He lost to Kevin Aguilar. He beat Bobby Moffett by split decision, lost to Movsar Evloev, had a draw against Hani Yahya, and then was just cut by the UFC. And since then, he's gone on to Bellator, and he's 3-2 in Bellator. However, I think Jalen Bates beats him. Jalen Bates is the new breed here that Bellator is bringing up. He's 26 years old. Again, that last win over Jornel Lugo is good. I know back-to-back wins for him have been by split decision. However, I think we're hoping this one isn't by split decision. I think it's going to be a close fight, don't get me wrong. I think, again, if Bates is having trouble with guys like Mark Coates and Jornel Lugo, he will tend to have a little bit of trouble with Enrique Barzola as well. That's fair. However, I still think he wins. I think Jalen Bates goes out there. I think he out-grapples Enrique Barzola, and I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. Our next fight comes in the featherweight division. Lucas Brennan takes on Weber Almeida. A good fight. It's a good fight because Lucas Brennan, again, another undefeated guy. He's 8-0. He gets a 7-1 at Weber Almeida. Almeida, though, is a huge dog in this fight. Back-to-back fights for Weber Almeida with wins. His last one, though, being a split decision over Ryan Lilly, a guy who was 11-8 at the time and now is 12-10, who just lost to Jesse Strader in his last fight, former UFC name Jesse Strader. Almeida's 5-1 in Bellator, one loss coming to Johnny Soto by unanimous decision. He just really hasn't beaten anybody. He beat Fabricio Franco. That's probably his best win in Bellator, but Franco's a guy who's now 8-6. It's tough to gauge how good Weber Almeida truly is. And Lucas Brennan's a guy who, given, has not fought the best names either. Brennan has fought some cans in Bellator. He has. But again, the guy is 8-0. He's gone out there. He's won a bunch of fights. He's got 6 wins by submission. Again, all 8 wins are in Bellator. Who's to say this fight's going to be any different? Brennan is a monster on the ground. I think he's going to deliver tonight, or on Saturday night, or Friday night. I think this card's on. Lucas Brennan's going to win. Again, he's one of the guys that Bellator does like to push. And I think Lucas Brennan's going to get the victory. He's going to get it done by first round submission. Our next fight comes from the lightweight division. We have got Sydney Outlaw taking on Islam Mamedov in this fight. For Islam Mamedov, 22-2-1. We have seen him in Bellator most recently against Nick Brown. However, he did have that one round fight where he lost to Benson Henderson by split decision. This is a fight that got Benson Henderson basically the main event against Peter Queally, then got him in the Grand Prix, which he ended up losing in the championship fight to Usman Nurmagomedov. But after that fight, the loss to Henderson, Mamedov has gone on to win a fight in Eagle FC against Zach Zane, and then he beat Nick Brown by unanimous decision. Mamedov is a great wrestler, and that's what he's going to come in and what he's going to try to do. Again, it's a tough ask because Sidney Outlaw is good, and Outlaw is a solid fighter who was kicked out of the Grand Prix. He was supposed to take on Mansour Barnoui. He got kicked out of the Grand Prix because of a failed drug test. That fight was only 3 months ago, though. And apparently he's already been cleared to go fight Islam Mamedov. I don't know entirely how that's going to work, but Outlaw does get Mamedov here, but they're throwing him into the wolves. However, Outlaw is a good grappler in his own right. Don't get me wrong. Outlaw is a good grappler. He got knocked out by Tufik Musayev, but Tufik Musayev is a good striker. He came back, won a fight in Ryzen in his last fight. It's going to happen to you. Sidney Outlaw is good. However, I don't think he's Islam Mamedov good. I think Mamedov is going to... I think he's going to weather the storm in terms of the grappling and the submission attempts that Outlaw may throw at him. And I think Mamedov's going to go in there, be the dominant wrestler, hold his top control time. And Islam Mamedov is going to go out there and pick up the victory. I think he's going to get it done by unanimous decision. Next up in the featherweight division, it is the return of James Gallagher. Gallagher is finally back since his loss to Patchy Mix in 2021. Of course, one of Bellator's big stars back in the day. They were trying to make him the next Conor McGregor just because he was Irish and he had a big personality, and he was young. He's only 26 still. They're giving Gallagher a fight he can go out there and win. That is the purpose of this fight against James Gonzalez. Gonzalez has lost 6 times in the past before, all by decision. I think this will be his 7th loss by decision because I think James Gallagher is going to get him. Gallagher, I think, is just simply better. On the feet, Gallagher, I think, is very... he just is. That's just how James Gallagher is. But on the ground, James Gallagher is still a good grappler. I know his losses, again, the Patchy Mix loss was by submission, the Ricky Bandejas loss was by knockout. However, and the knockout victory was huge. However, in this fight, I think Gallagher is going to be the better grappler. I think he's going to be able to get James Gonzalez down. However, I don't think he's going to be able to finish him. I think Gallagher, though, will keep that ground positioning. I think he's just going to kind of lay on Gonzalez, and I think he's going to win. It's a fight, again, it's a fight that Gallagher just needs to win. It's that simple. He just needs to win a fight. Patchy Mix was that fight that they thought they could elevate him with. It was a co-main event that he was a big underdog in, but it was a fight again they wanted to elevate Gallagher to the next level. Obviously, it didn't happen. Patchy Mix is now going to fight for a world championship in his next fight against Sergio Pettis to unify the world title and the Grand Prix. I think Gallagher wins. I think Gallagher gets it done, and I think he'll win this fight by unanimous decision. Our next fight comes in the middleweight division. A great fight between Dalton Rosta and Aaron Jeffery. This one's good because I have sang the praises of Dalton Rosta for a while. I think Rosta's really good. This guy's 8-0. He's yet to lose yet. He's coming off a big unanimous decision victory over Anthony Adams. He beat Romero Cotton before that in a fight where there was, again, 2 guys who were undefeated. One undefeated fighter was going to emerge from that fight, and it was Dalton Rosta. Romero Cotton has not fought since then. Rosta's good. His striking's getting better. And he gets Aaron Jeffery, which Aaron Jeffery, again, is in that sort of semi-elite range of fighters that Bellator's got at middleweight. Because this is the fight that we were talking about, kind of what Gallagher was tested with Patchy Mix. I'm not saying Aaron Jeffery's Patchy Mix, but it's that elevation into the next level for one of Bellator's biggest prospects in Dalton Rosta. This is what this fight is. Rosta's 8-0. He now finally gets that next type of fight against Aaron Jeffery, a guy who has, he's fought some of the best guys Bellator's had to offer. Austin Vanderford, John Salter. Now he beat Vanderford. We knocked him out in the first round, and then he dropped a fight to Salter by unanimous decision. He lost to Cairo Borjaio back in the Contender Series in 2021. But again, Borjaio, is very good. He's undefeated so far in the UFC. Aaron Jeffery owns a victory over Andre Petrosky, who's what? I think he's undefeated still in the UFC as well. He's 4-0. He gets Gerald Mearshart in Boston in a couple weeks, or next week. Jeffery's a good fighter. However, Dalton Rosta is really coming into his own. His striking is really coming into his own as well. We will see if he's able to go out there, and we will see if he's able to weather the storm of the striking of Aaron Jeffery, and we'll see if he can stay competitive with him and beat him. I am going to say Dalton Rosta picks up the victory. I think Rosta goes out there and wins the biggest fight of his life. And I think he really enters the Bellator top 5 of the middleweight division. Again, who knows if Bellator is going to remain a thing. But for now, Dalton Rosta goes out there and picks up the victory. Give me Rosta to win by unanimous decision. Okay, next day, but anyways, it's fine. Co-main event, Vadim Moldavsky taking on Steve Mowry. This is a rematch of their fight. Oh, what? A year ago, I believe now. It was an accidental eye poke. Yeah, it was in August of 2022. Accidental eye poke 54 seconds into the fight. However, since then, Vadim Moldavsky went out and he fought Lyndon Vassell. He got finished in the first round by Vassell. Vassell knocked him out in the first round. I was there for that fight. And then he's taken on Steve Mowry, who Mowry had, of course, no contest against Vadim Moldavsky, and then you had the draw against Ali Isaev earlier this year in February. You know, he's still undefeated in Bellator, 6-0. You know, wins by submission, wins by TKO as well. Mowry can really get it done wherever he really wants to. I've got him in this fight by first round knockout. I just feel like, again, since losing to Ryan Bader, Vadim Moldavsky has not been that same guy. I did not anticipate him losing to Lyndon Vassell. I didn't think that was going to happen. But again, Vassell beat him. And again, Lyndon Vassell is an older heavyweight. He's 40 years old, who's now on a 5-fight winning streak. But since Moldavsky beat him in 2019, I didn't think 4 years later that Vassell was going to get the upper edge. It happened. What are we looking at here for Vadim Moldavsky? I think the chin's gone. I don't know, because Vassell hit him hard, but still, I think Mowry's going to be able to have his way. I think he's going to be able to stun Vadim Moldavsky. I think he's going to be able to rock him. And it's something that, again, I didn't really anticipate happening because, of course, in their first fight last year, I believe we picked, we actually picked Steve Mowry. Okay. But still, Moldavsky's kind of just fallen off a little bit. I'm going to take Steve Mowry to stay undefeated. I think he gets the job done by first round knockout. On to our main event of the evening. 5 rounds, of course, in, of course, the welterweight division between Logan Storley and Brennan Ward. Ward getting that step up in competition. He's 17-6, 12-6 in Bellator. Of course, we're talking step up now against a guy in Logan Storley who's fought for the World Championship before, who has been an interim title holder. Of course, losing, though, his last fight to Yaroslav Amosov. You got, I believe, like a 50-43 on that card, or with that fight, but still, Storley is a dog. Of course, the first Amosov fight was a lot closer than the second one, but again, Storley, since the Amosov fight, won 3 straight fights, winning the interim championship against Michael Venom Page. You know what Logan Storley is going to bring. The striking is getting better, but again, it's going to be the wrestling that's going to win Logan Storley a lot of fights. Of course, born in South Dakota, he now gets to main event in South Dakota, and he takes on a guy in Brennan Ward who's definitely going to try to keep this fight standing. I mean, that's how simple you can talk about this fight. Brennan Ward wants this fight on the feet. Logan Storley wants this on the ground. It's a matter of Logan Storley can drag Brennan Ward down and get the takedown on multiple occasions in this fight, or is it, the Irish Brennan Ward able to keep this fight standing? I know he's not actually Irish; it's just his nickname. He's not from Ireland. Okay, my point. Anyways, I think Storley wins. I think Storley gets this fight down. I think he does out-wrestle Brennan Ward. Again, Ward is 35 years old. This is a guy that's coming up for win over Sabah Hamazi in his last fight where he, head kicked him in the first round. He beat Cassius Kane before that. He beat Brandon Bell. The guy's picking up wins, but before that, again, the long layoff of 5 years. I just don't think it's going to be enough, though, to beat Logan Storley. I think Storley's able to drag him down. We've seen Logan Storley against really good strikers. I present to you Michael Venom Page, and Storley was able to weather the storm and take him down. I don't think anything's different against Brennan Ward, so I think Logan Storley wins in the main event here in South Dakota on one of Bellator's final cards, their second to last, card in the United States, with of course, that Usman Nurmagomedov and Brent Primus card coming at you from San Diego, California. So, folks, thank you all for watching our Bellator 298 predictions here on the channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure you leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Give me a for watching, and Mamba forever.